Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this public hearing held at 6:30 p.m. on June 9th, 2024. Kisugukit, we acknowledge the city of Fernie is located within Kukanamakas, the unceded territory of Yakutat. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakutat and are members of the Tanaha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order. This is a public hearing for bylaw 2521 and bylaw 2522. And I will read the following notice concerning public hearings. The following public hearing is convened pursuant to the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representation to council respecting matters contained in the following proposed bylaws. Official Community Plan number 2231, Amendment Bylaw number 2521, 2024, to receive submissions from the public regarding the proposed amendment to the land use designation of 692 3rd Avenue from institutional to historic downtown. Zoning bylaw number 1750, Amendment Bylaw number 2522, 2024, to receive submissions from the public regarding the proposed rezoning of 692 3rd Avenue from P1, public institutional, to C1, commercial retail. Retail commercial. At this hearing, any person present who believes their interest in property is affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard on matters contained in the proposed bylaw. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. However, it is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict to matters contained in the bylaws. Those of you who wish to speak should, at the appropriate time, commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may share your views with council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of the council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at these hearings to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws. After the hearing is concluded, council is not permitted to receive further submissions on the proposed bylaws. The mayor, myself, will convene the regular meeting and council may give further consideration to the proposed bylaws. With that, I'll call on our Director of Planning, Director Lennox. For anyone watching at home, we're experiencing some technical difficulties at our podium.
Before 21 and 25-22 pertain to the old fire hall site at 692 3rd Avenue, southeast corner of 7th Street and 3rd Avenue. So as the mayor mentioned, the purpose of these bylaws are to amend the land use designation in Schedule B of the OCP from institutional to historic downtown. So that would enable the development of the site from its former fire hall use to a mixed type of development with commercial at the bottom and potentially residential units on the upper floors. So in order to be consistent with that land use designation, the rezoning has to be from P1 public institutional to C1 retail commercial. Retail commercial is a bit of a misnomer. It allows a range of uses, including dwelling units. So dwelling units could be constructed above or behind the principal commercial use. So commercial uses, there's a range of service, commercial, retail, as well as office uses that would be allowed under the C1 zone. So the application is consistent with council's objectives of creating a livable community. It's supported by the following goals in their council's strategic plan: housing and childcare, housing diversity and community services. The proposed rezoning, as I mentioned, would not be consistent with the institutional land use, simply because under institutional, you can only do public type buildings such as fire halls, as the previous historic use, and provincial buildings or other city buildings. So we need to redesignate it to historic downtown so that we can have a mixed commercial residential type of development, which would be sorely needed in our downtown, and it creates opportunities for a walkable community. And given that there's the grocery store and service commercial uses such as banks and healthcare facilities downtown, this is an excellent site for a mixed use type of development, particularly with residential above. So it also, as it mentioned there, is consistent with policies such as maximizing existing infrastructure in the main town neighborhood, housing affordability, increasing density, and it would create a much needed type of housing that's lacking, particularly in our downtown. What could be proposed here is a 5-story mixed use development with 4 stories of residential, which would require an elevator, which would be great for promoting accessibility for particularly older people in our neighborhood that want to sell their single family houses and move downtown. So that's a great feature of this site. And it's supported by our affordable housing strategy as well. There was one public comment was received, and there was wondering if the person that wrote the comment was wondering if there was any discussion on whether the space could be used and could be developed into housing. As I mentioned, the zoning does allow for dwelling units above and behind the commercial use. So provided they go through a development permit and building permit, that certainly could be a development which it actually is being proposed for the site of the Elk Valley Family Society. So that's something that could happen on the site. So that concern is addressed. So in summary, council provided first and second readings to both bylaws on June 11th. The notice of public hearing requirements have been met. The one public comment has been received. So the recommendation is that council or that bylaw number 2521 and bylaw number 2522 be given third reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lennox. Any questions from council? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I'll turn to, at this point, turn to our corporate officer. Was there any additional correspondence received related to this matter?
Yes, I'd be happy to review that. So I can confirm that public notice requirements for bylaw 2521 and 2522 have been met in accordance with section 466 of the Local Government Act. Public notice for the proposed bylaw amendments were advertised in the June 27th and July 4th editions of the Free Press and posted at the city's public notice places across from the post office and in City Hall and on the city's website on June 25th. Notice of the public hearing was mailed to registered owners within a 100-meter radius of the subject property on or before June 25th and hand-delivered to occupants of those properties on or before June 25th. For our correspondence, 2 submissions were received. One was from Michelle Dunn on behalf of the Ktunaxa Nation Council. So they wanted to express that Yakada Kukriyit, oh, that was terrible tonight. Yakada Kukriyit has no concerns with the rezoning of this property, but they have requested that a portion of the commercial space be allocated for Indigenous owned or operated businesses and is happy to discuss this option with the developer. And as mentioned before by Director Lennox, we had a submission from Heather Crowley who had inquired if the space had been considered for development into an apartment style housing. However, that would be part of the plan with the Elk Valley Family Housing Society.
Thank you, Ms. Daniel. Typically now we'd have a presentation by the applicant or their agent, but it's not required as this zoning change is being led by the municipality. So with that, I will call for submissions from the floor. Seeing none. I will then turn to Ms. Chown. Is there anybody online who wishes to speak? And as we have nothing to respond to, I will now close the hearing. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we will move on forthwith to our regular meeting of Fernie City Council held at 6:43 p.m. on July 9th, 2024. Once again, Kisukukit, and we acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakitat Nucleat. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. The Kanahunik are from Yakitat Nucleat and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I will call the meeting to order and ask for mover and a seconder that the agenda be amended to move item 9.1 to section 6, committee of the whole, and that the item be renumbered 6.1 and that the agenda be adopted as amended. Moved by Councillor Ramadas, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. And at this point, I would ask, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and add a new item to the agenda, that being the community center. And I suspect at 11.2 under business. And if I'd ask for a mover, Councillor McIsaac, and a seconder. And if there's any discussion required, I can certainly speak to it, but I'll happily speak to it when we get to it in the agenda. So then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. I'll now look to a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting held on June 25th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Ramadas. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I will now open the floor to public participation and invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. And a speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. And out to the gallery. Does anybody wish to address council? Seeing none. Nobody online. Thank you, Ms. Chown. And we will now move into the committee of the whole. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, and then we'll ask for a vote. Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Ramadas. If there's any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. We'll enter committee of the whole and receive a presentation from the Fernie Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, Wendy McDougall. Ms. McDougall.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, Mayor and Council, thank you for having me here today. The Fernie Chamber of Commerce is submitting a joint application for a 5-year rural community immigration pilot, also known as the RCIP. This program is offered by Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada, the IRCC, and aims to address the unique labor market demands of rural and small communities across Canada by offering an accelerated pathway to permanent residency. RCIP is an opportunity to help local businesses find workers they need and keep individuals who are already in the community. Local businesses have shared that while they use programs like the LMIA and BC PMP, these are often lengthy, costly, and uncertain. The RCIP would provide a more efficient and cost-effective pathway to bring and retain workers into our community long-term, accelerating them immediately to permanent residency. We've also heard that many of the seasonal workers in the community would like to stay long-term, but many cannot see a pathway to permanent residency and ultimately citizenship. This results in increased staff turnover, a cost to businesses, and rehiring and training a higher number of staff that is unnecessary. Through the pilot, only 15 communities across Canada will be selected for the pilot. Therefore, 7 communities in the East Kootenays have united together to submit a joint application. Together, the communities of Cranbrook, Creston, Kimberley, Golden, Columbia Valley, and Revelstoke have joined together. Together, we are committed to actively gathering the necessary letters of support and proof of funding before the application deadline of July 16th. Letters of support are required from local government, local housing authorities, local settlement services, and funding sources. Unfortunately, the pilot is not funded. Therefore, each of the East Kootenay communities are looking to raise roughly $30,000 a year for a 5-year term for a total of $150,000 a year for the program to cover the cost of supporting staff and associated costs. These staff will assist employees in understanding how to access and navigate the program and make sure that the necessary supports are in place with partners as applicants are successful in the program. The Fernie Chamber of Commerce sees this as a huge opportunity for our local business community and is committed to supporting it financially. We are also seeking funding from large organizations that support the overall business community as well as individual businesses. So far, we've received financial support from a few local businesses, including hotels, fast food, restaurants, and a grocer. Other municipalities have received funding from similar businesses, as well as their local ski resort and an independent school in Kimberley. College of the Rockies is supporting the program and funding communities in which they have a campus, including Fernie. Fernie is at roughly 15 of the 30,000 required funding for our community. In terms of timeline, we are anticipating that the government will announce the successful candidates in late 2024 or early 2025. Therefore, funding will likely not be due until 2025 after the next city budget cycle is complete. Funding is also not due unless we are successful. We obviously want to be successful, and it would be really unfortunate if our community was unable to apply because we haven't received enough funding for the program. With the success of the West Kootenays similar program, which is ending in August, the RNIP, we've heard that qualified non-residents are moving to towns where there's an accelerated pathway to permanent residency, where it's offered rather than staying in our own community. Other successes to note from the last pilot program, which we anticipate seeing here, are listed in your agenda package, but 650 jobs were filled over 4 years. Nearly 1,200 individuals received community recommendations for permanent residency. 256 employers participated in the pilot. 90% of the participants continue to live in the same region, and only 9% of the applicants were located overseas, underscoring that this program helps retain local residents. If we're successful, a steering committee with members from the participating communities will determine the priority sectors based on community needs. So far, we've identified sectors of food and beverage, healthcare aides and nurses, early childcare educators and teachers, and laborers in construction. So with that, I'll open up to questions, but we are requesting a letter of support and hopefully one with funding in it.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Appreciate it. Questions from council? Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Perhaps I missed it. When do you need to have the proof of funding by? How much longer do you have left on that?
So that needs to be part of the application process or application package, which is due on July 16th. We're looking for letters of support with funding by the 12th. So we've got enough time to put the package together.
Further questions? Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Worship. I have two questions. The first one is immigration has already been expanded quite a bit over the last few years due to intense demand from the business community all across Canada. This program looks to speed up the residency process, and I'm just wondering, since lots of people have done that, do you have any idea how the pilot process will compare from a time perspective to what's happening right now? Like, will it be half the time or a quarter of the time? Are we talking weeks instead of years? Do we know very much about what that looks like?
That's a great question. I can't qualify the time necessarily, but if you went through BCP&P or LMIA, that doesn't guarantee permanent residency. This accelerates you right to the end. So it's not a point system, and it's more of a guarantee. We had a call last night that was open to any of the community businesses that wanted to participate, and there's a business in Golden, and they had applied 3 times through LMIA, and they were 3 years down the road to get one of their chefs into the program, and they're still waiting.
Yep. Thank you. The second question I had was from the letter, in that it said that the statistics, 9% of the applications were from overseas, and stating that the program is helping local residents. So what I'm wondering is that, does that mean the program, as it's been running in Nelson, is helping existing immigrants in that town on a quick, faster path to residency, as opposed to importing more people and get them to residency?
That's a great way of interpreting that. So as part of our process, we also looked at the census from 2021, and there's 1,300 non-permanent residents in the East Kootenays right now. So this program would look to bring them permanent residency on a fast track basis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And so a related question, and maybe it's exactly the same question rephrased. So when you say 90% of those folks stay in the region, that's 90% of them were already in the region and have now received their permanent residency and are staying.
Of the 90% that participated in the program, they've decided to stay in that location.
Okay.
So they've established a life there. They want to stay there long term.
So they didn't come in with this program. They were there. They applied through this program, and now they've got their permanent residency. That's an excellent result, because everybody knows people in this community who are desperate to stay and are just playing a waiting game.
And I think another benefit of the program, is just that it allows us to identify the priority sectors, whereas the federal government has already identified 6 sectors. Lots of them are related to Lower Mainland in Vancouver with tech. That's not necessarily applicable to a resort municipality. So it's a great opportunity for us to customize.
And when you say tech, you mean TECH?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Councillor Ramanas.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Your Worship. Just have a question for Ms. McDougall there. Just in terms of how difficult it is to hire some of our employees here in the community, can you give us a sense of how much effort has gone into actually hiring people local before we tap into the immigration market?
I think that would be a business-specific question. Mine would be mostly just in talking to the businesses. I've gone around and done business walks, and lots of them have done it on a continuous basis throughout the years. I don't think there's enough workers here to fulfill the needs that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Your Worship. If we are successful, what is the plan for housing? We're kind of stressed right now. Is there a plan? I know that it's a short timeline. Maybe this is an unfair question for you.
Yeah,
but-
no, that's a great question. It's our probably next leading priority for the chamber is housing. I think there's a lot of projects in the works right now. We do need to provide a letter from the housing committee. We don't have a society here, so that we've got those plans in the works. Because a lot of them are here already, maybe that's not going to be as large of an issue.
Further? Ms. McDougall, when you say you've got 15,000 so far, is that 15,000 committed for the 5-year term or 15,000 committed for this year?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We are looking for the 5-year commitment. So that is, so far that is, for example, College of the Rockies is putting forward 5,000 for 5 years. So we've got 15 for 5 years.
Excellent, thank you. And sorry, you said this project determines the categories of jobs that qualify, or how is that?
So if we're successful, the participating communities will have a steering committee, and then we'll determine the sectors and priority jobs that would be applicable.
Okay.
So then you could put an employee forward, and then they would help them through. So the funding is for 1.5 full-time equivalent people to support the communities.
Okay.
So if it wasn't clear in the letter, we're looking for 30,000 per community. So we've increased it from 5 communities to 7 now. The more funding we have, the more support we have, the more people will put through the program. It was a very short time frame to raise the money, so that's why we're looking for local businesses to support us. If we're successful, then we would definitely be going out and looking for grants and other support for years 2 to 5.
Okay, thank you. And how confident are you in terms of our ability to commit funding and then allow us to budget for that funding in the timeline in terms of needing the dollars on your desk, as it were?
So I don't think that they would announce the successful candidates until later this year. Then we would establish our committee. We'd go out and find the person to do this role. So we would need the funding in probably early January is what the
Right.
board and I had sort of talked through.
Okay, thank you. Which sort of, I'll direct my next question to staff is, so in terms of providing a recommendation here, the letter does ask for a funding commitment, a potential funding commitment. Is that something do we need to include that in a resolution if we advance this meeting, or is that something we can investigate internally and then come back?
Your Worship, I would suggest that it would be committed in a resolution this evening, and I believe the application deadline is next week, and you said that this Friday you would need the information from us by.
No,
So it would need to be completed at the meeting this evening.
Of course, yeah. Councillor Riley Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. Apologies if I missed something in the package. So 1.5 FTEs of staff are going to be needed to administer the program for all 7 communities, or is it per?
No, that's correct for all of the communities.
And how will it be set up? Will it be something like a society? Will it be run under its own entity, or are you using an existing organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Community Futures for the West Kootenays ran it for for the RNIP, and they're also going to assist us in coordinating. So they've got some time allocated for that. But yeah, it would definitely be a committee, and we would support them a bit, but it would be run by this 1.5 person.
Thank you.
And the more funding we get, the more people we can add to that committee. It could grow.
Councillor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. Some of the numbers that we got out of the report, 90% of the participants remained in region and so on and so forth. Those statistics, are they self-reported or are they coming from some other source?
For the West Kootenays?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a website, and all of that came from that. There's a link, I think, in one of the first attachments, and then, yeah, they've got a website as well.
Okay.
We would hope to do the same thing.
Mr. Burdett?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Just for council's information, if they are wanting to support with funding, given it would be 2025, it would be part of 2025's operating budget. And for your reference, a 1% tax increase next year is going to be around 94,000. So, 0.1% would be 9,400, just for council's information on that.
So 30% would be the 30,000 commitment.
0.3%, yeah. But I believe Ms. McDougall said they had 15 of the 30.
Yeah. Councilor McGuire. Oh, sorry. I saw you first, so you go ahead.
It's really the chair's decision. So I find myself of two minds about this, Your Worship. On the one hand, as a general rule, I loathe these quick asks. We're desperate for money, make a decision today, without having much chance to ponder it and figure out how this fits our budget and where are the strategic goals and all those types of things. And I'm sure all of us have done a bit of reading on it, thought about it a little bit, but it's still very rapid. And these types of quick decisions are generally, I'm not super happy with. I'd rather have us time to think about it. But having said that, $5,000 feels like a very approachable number. And when I look at the benefit to the business community itself in having more predictable long-term employment, that degree of health and comfort for their local community and for businesses in town, I think is probably worth it. In fact, having stable employment across a bunch of local businesses will probably more than pay back the $5,000 investment on our part over the next $5,000 per year over the next 5 years investment. I certainly have no numbers to support that statement at all. Just to make that clear, I just made that up. But it does feel like that type of investment supporting our business community, it's a small number and that stability would be positive. So I would support this.
Councilor Nixon?
Thank you, Worship. I guess I'm not surprised that it is quick and it's from the federal government and it doesn't come with any funding. So it's, it's downloading again onto us. I really like the intent. An accelerated pathway to permanent residency is really good. It's a great idea. The funding thing, I too had about 5K written down here for some reason. I guess the question that goes to Mr. Dougal is, will you be able to secure the other 10?
I'm not sure, and I wouldn't want to lose this for $5,000. So Revelstoke municipality is contributing 20 annually. Kimberley is going for, or sorry, Cranbrook is going forward for 10 tomorrow. And I haven't heard from the rest.
Thank you. Councilor Audie Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. Actually, Councillor Nixon asked a question that I wanted to ask.
Thank you. Councilor Shoesmith and then Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Question and a comment. So Counselor Nixon asked about half my question there. 1 second here. Yeah, great. I actually had $10,000 written down, which still leaves you guys scrambling for 5,000. I'm given to understand, though, that the odds that this goes ahead and that we'll actually have to pony up the money is actually somewhat slim. Is that correct?
Can you repeat that?
Okay, I'm given to understand that the odds that we're picked for this and it goes ahead are not, it's not a certain thing. It's somewhat slim. Is that correct?
That's fair. There's 15 across Canada.
Okay.
I feel like ours is very unique. I think we've really come together as the East Kootenays plus Revelstoke in collaborating together over something that we all have in common. Whether we're successful or not, we've started something great.
Thanks for picking my question out of that word salad. Just a comment. Several times in my career, I've actually run into issues getting people through the system that were already here. It's exceptionally difficult and time consuming. I've had a couple failures with that. And I've also definitely been confronted with the shortage of labor harming my workflow, just personally. And I'm just a little guy. So I would say that although I am of two minds on this, I would think that $10,000 would be appropriate. I think they would be able to scramble for the remainder.
Councillor Ramirez?
Thanks, Your Worship. It was, there's a few layers here and a few competing demands here. I really appreciate that, there is a labor shortage and being able to tap into this program, bring some skilled people into our local workforce will be a good benefit. The reason I asked the executive director about the question of whether there has been a intended effort from local businesses to hire local was around that particular thinking that, you prefer the local workforce first before you tap into the labor market from abroad. I think you answered that question very well. Thanks for that. In terms of funding, Your Worship, I'm actually indifferent to how much we are going to propose for the first year. Like, I'll be happy to support whatever my colleagues and yourself decide. My question is more around the ongoing funding after year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. Say we are in a situation where we cannot pony up the money from the city of Fernie. I just I'm wondering, like, where else will you guys get the funding from to just run this program throughout? Because like Councillor McKay, I am too, like, I don't want to be committing it as an ongoing forever type of a program. First year funding, just get that energy and momentum going. I would be happy to sponsor, but year on year, sits a little bit uncomfortably with me.
Any comments, Ms. McDougall?
I think once the program picks up and we see the benefits from it, and we've got an opportunity to look for other grants and other funding, it will come. I think in response to your earlier question, in the business expansion and retention report, a lot of businesses said that workforce was a major concern for them, and it has been.
Mhm.
If it isn't today, it could be in years 2, 3, or 4. So I think that report's already demonstrated that there's a need for it. But yeah, we're definitely going to go and look for more funding. We've just been given this incredibly short time frame. I don't like asking for money, but it's been really encouraging to see local businesses without a guarantee of necessarily getting anything out of it, seeing the benefit of it and contributing $1,000, $2,500 to it because they see it as such a great benefit to the community.
Councillor McGuire?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify after Councillor Ramanas's comments that I was proposing $5,000 for the per year for the 5 years. Like Councillor Ramadas, I would be reluctant to commit to any funding in perpetuity, but I also am quite confident that after 5 years, the business community will understand the value of this, and if it is as valuable as they think it is, they won't need to come and ask us for the money. they'll be on board with the program, if assuming that the federal government continues it on. If they're only doing a 5-year pilot program, there's no guarantee the project will continue after that anyway. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah.
So for context for that, so the program that was offered in the West Kootenays expires in August. They're applying for this same program because they've had so much success already. So we're competing against them. So they obviously want to continue doing it. It is a very strange way of asking for money for 5 years, but that was what was set out by the federal government.
And the West Kootenays have been fully funded for their entire stretch?
They were not required to show proof of funding initially, and then they went out and got funding.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
that's what's different.
Councillor Adi Kelly?
Thanks, Your Worship. I was just wondering, because you mentioned that some local businesses have committed, will all businesses be able to tap into this pool if we are successful? Will businesses that have contributed sort of be priority, or will it just be across the board open to like anyone in the 7 communities?
So it'll be based on the priority sectors that are set by the steering committee. And there's no guarantee by contributing money that you're guaranteed a spot or 2 spots, or there's a cap on how many people you can put forward. So that was our reluctance in asking the business community to put money forward, and asking the city, contributing from the chamber, and asking other larger organizations.
And those other organizations, this is going to sound a bit mercenary, Ms. McDougall, so forgive me. So if, for example, we were to commit 15,000 to get you across the line, do you have requests outstanding with larger businesses, larger organizations in the region that could potentially bring that number down in the first year?
That's a fair question, yes. And that could probably likely be adjusted if we were successful, if we had more than we were looking for. Having said that, if we have more, we can do more with the capital.
Yes, well, and presumably you could roll that on to your second year.
Yep.
So pre-fund the second year and then reduce your funding commitment for the second year.
There's lots of ways we can do it. It is a part of the application requirement that we have these letters that have a dollar amount for 5 years. And for us to be a part of the East Kootenay application, we need to sort of pull our weight, so to say, and show that we can contribute as well.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thanks, Your Worship. Don't want to put you on the spot here, but is there any reason why East Forward and Outford are not part of this application?
It was a very short time frame. I did let them know that we were applying, and they didn't feel like they could, that they had the funding for it or the time to get it. We tried to answer some questions. They invited me to present to council. That wasn't within my capacity outside of Fernie. So it's unfortunate. I'm a bit torn there, but we've put a lot of hours, as have the other participating communities, in a short time frame to be able to apply.
Yeah, fair enough. And our local economy, I think, is, in terms of its diversity, is quite different from theirs as well, in terms of the employees we need to staff our local businesses. It's a very different landscape. Yeah, personally, I would support the $15,000 gap. Gives us time to plan, gives you time to plan, gives us time to have a conversation about where the other funding could potentially come from and restructure as we go. Because as you know, we have a deep and abiding fiscal responsibility to our taxpayers and our taxpayers' dollars. So, Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarification, are we all talking about a dollar number per year for the next 5 years?
We are in terms of the content of the letter and the letter that's required by the chamber,
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, and you're proposing $15,000 per year for the next 5 years?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Counselor Shoesmith?
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Do you feel, timeline seems pretty short here, it being the 9th already. Would you feel confident that if we were to approve $10,000 per year for the 5 years, would you be able to scrape up the remaining 5 in change in the, what's it, a week left?
3 days.
Yeah, that's really put me on the spot. We do have outstanding requests that we haven't heard back from. 10 to 15 would be spectacular.
Counselor Amina?
Your worship, I'll be super comfortable committing to the first year. Subsequent years, I think we'll have to have a wholesome discussion about it at a different point. I don't know how we want to structure that, but yeah, I agree with the councillor here. It's, yeah, 5 years is a long commitment.
Counselor McIsaac?
I actually like the 5-year commitment. I like the long-term planning. I like that our staff is going to be able to know what to put in the budget for the next little while, and we're not going to be expected to do any changes. I prefer the long-term planning over the short-term decision. I'm reluctant to commit $15,000. That seems like a lot to me. I was thinking 5. I would think I would support $10,000 per year over the next 5 years. But if this program is as desirable as it sounds for the local business community, then I'm confident that we will see that desire turn into support. If not, then perhaps that suggests that the need isn't there or the desire isn't there. So I think we should support it, but I think we need to expect the business community to do their fair share as well. And it sounds like other communities are stepping up as well. So.
Counselor Audrey Kelly and then Counselor Shoesmith.
Thanks, Your Worship. This might be a question for Direct CFO. Our discretionary grant funds are for non-profits. Is this type of thing considered a non-profit enterprise? I was kind of trying to go there earlier with my question about who and how would it be administered? Because we do already have a pool of money that we commit to discretionary grants.
Thanks, Councillor Adia Kelly. I would guess no, and we have, under that program, we have denied applicants that weren't registered under the BC nonprofit registry. So or the Canadian Charity Foundation or whatever. So I'm assuming that this pilot project is not registered there as well. But it's just an assumption.
So I would ask a question of you, Ms. McDougall. Again, it sounds a bit mercenary. But if, for example, we were to commit to the 15,000, and to Councillor McIsaac's point, the business community is responding and they're seeing results, and accordingly there's greater interest. This is going to sound unfair, I don't mean it to, but if you have all the funding, are you just going to relax and go with the funding you have, or is there an opportunity to adjust that funding as interest grows and the process is underway, such that we can potentially revisit this at a future date? Am I asking that clearly?
You are.
Yeah.
It's a fair question. I'm not sure that I can answer it today without seeing what the structure of the agreement is, or
enough, yeah.
In my mind, if we raise more money, we can do more with it. We could have more people. But I am hopeful that we'll find other funding in other years and that the business community will also step forward. So I think the letter is to demonstrate that we have funding long-term, because a pilot can't be done in a year. It'll take months to get set up and get going.
Yeah.
I do agree that a 5-year program pilot makes sense to get the most out of it.
Mhm.
So I think that's why they've structured it that way.
Thank you. Yeah, and it, as has been said around the table, it does matter to us as a community. Yeah. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. So as I understand it, is there no way to front load this? I mean, clearly we need the push right now, but we don't want to be on the hook for full 15 grand for the full 5 years. Is there any way we can give that little push now and then reduce it after? You don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't say today.
Yeah.
If we needed it, it
Fair
would
enough.
be nice that we've got it there. Yeah, I'm hopeful that we would find other grant funding elsewhere.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think a lot of these programs, you think about it and they have, that I've seen in the past, it's sort of staggered funding from the regional district or something like that. It's like a 15K push it, and the next year would be 10 and 5 and 5, 5. I would be more comfortable with that. It's 2024, there's an election in 2026. Pushing this onto another council is unfair, as this has happened to us before. Right, so I would be a little cautious in doing the fifth. I would push the 15 the first year, and there's a lot of ifs if we get it, if we can compete 15 communities, blah blah blah, amongst Canada. So I'd be willing to commit the 15 for the first year and then stagger it down 10, 5, 5, 5. So that sort of thing.
Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mayor Milligan.
I apologize. Councillor Ramanas, that is, okay.
Just a thought occurs, can we not just earmark total amount of funding to be dispersed over the years as needed? Just say 50,000 goes into the pot and then it can be drawn down into that as needed for the 5 years, amounting to 10 grand a year on average?
Presumably, looking at Mr. Burdett, we could structure something that way.
I apologize. I was typing an email that came from Councillor Audia Kelly's question. Could you please repeat, Councillor Shoesmith?
Oh, sorry, it was word salad anyway. I was just wondering if there was a way we could set aside a lump sum, say 50,000 being averaged out, at 10 grand a year, that could be drawn down as needed. They could pull more from it this year if they needed it, and then would be on their own to find more funding later.
That's a good question, Councillor Shoesmith. One option would be, as part of next year's budget cycle, to create a separate reserve for this that could be drawn down for, or we could, allocate part of a reserve that already exists, such as the financial stability, a certain portion of that reserve for this program to draw down on. But either way, that reserve has to be replenished by taxation at some point, so. But it does allow more freedom in terms of timing of cash withdrawal, I suppose.
Councillor Ramanas.
Thanks, Your Worship. Ms. McDougall, as you can see, there's a lot of internal mechanics going on here. I want to assure you that, the small businesses are taxpayers also. So it's not like we are trying to prioritize one over the other. It's just the fact that we need to figure out how to fund this as an ongoing concern.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. I think we've strayed away from the question that was being asked, which is we need to commit in a letter support for this program, X number of dollars each year for the next 5 years, so that they can start committing their time and energy and start looking for people and all those types of things. And establishing $50,000 now for a fund means that's coming out of this year's budget. Whereas if we're committing for the next 5 years, we're only potentially committing $10,000 from the budget, and then $10,000 in the following ones. Yes, does that decrease the amount of potential flexibility that they have? Yes, but I'll be frank, it's not our problem. Our problem is we need to demonstrate support for this particular program so that they can apply for and be part of the pilot program, where all of this is for naught.
Correct.
So let's pick a number to like $10,000 and say, that's how much we're committing for the next 5 years, and then give them the letter, and then they can go off and do the job that they're trying to do. And our budget people will work out how that's going to happen over the next 5 years, and then we can move on with the next item. I think we're trying to do financial finagling, which is not really part of what we should be trying to accomplish here. Let's just tell them if we're giving them support or not.
Fair comment. Mr. Bornowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just note one clarification. I think if I look at the templated letter of support request attached to the agenda, it's quite simple. It's an optional commitment that the city of Fernie would pledge a financial contribution of X to support the implementation. It's not seeking year over year, or at least it's not explicitly in that letter. It's seeking a specific financial contribution. My only other comments are that in considering council's strategic plan and objectives, as it's my role to provide policy-based advice, when you look at your highest level guiding policy as a council being that and the official community plan, immigration and supports for this program may not be listed in your strategic objectives. And therefore, it may be worth looking at your core strategic objectives and considering that in conjunction with the official community plan. The official community plan does have policy related to economic development, and it does, in section 3, outline that the city should work with the Chamber of Commerce to identify obstacles and opportunities, work with the Chamber to encourage and promote local shopping, local economic development, work with the industry, explore creating or supporting an economic development office, which, as you may know, is an initiative that is underway with the Elk Valley Economic Initiative and would be a requisition on the RD side of a tax bill for local residents to explore creating an economic development office for our subregion in the Elk Valley. I have not found specific language in the OCP that supports specifically an immigration or citizenship-based approach, but I just want to flag that those are considerations and that I would recommend you be specific in terms of the financial commitment, understanding that we do face uncertain times in terms of cost escalations. You look at a specific financial commitment rather than a year over year, because if in a year over year commitment, you will then need to consider that as well with all of the other community partnership and community investments that council does across the community.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Councillor Ramdas?
Your Worship, it got muddled in the
Oh, fair
conversation,
enough.
so it'll come back.
Okay. Yeah, I do take a little bit of issue with Councillor McIsaac's comment. I don't disagree that we sort of strayed from the question that was being asked, but I think it's fair to ponder and puzzle over the various means by which we would support an initiative like this. And it's fair to do that in the public eye. I'd have no issue with that at all in terms of the conversation thus far. And I also, somewhat in response to Mr. Bornowski's comments, you know, one of our key drivers in our strategic plan, when I don't have it open in front of me, is creating and maintaining a livable community. And if we are working proactively to add employees in support of local business, and we can all go out to a restaurant and get a seat and get a server, and folks are working in our various local businesses and grocery stores, I think our strategic plan does support this. It's not, I don't think it's much of a stretch to make that connection. To that end, I would look to somebody on council to, before we rise to propose a recommendation, the language escapes me, a resolution that we can then advance in the public meeting.
Your Worship, if I may,
No, yes, please.
if we could return back to regular meeting, we can discuss this, create an item 7.1, items arising from committee of the whole, and at that time, council would be able to make a binding financial resolution and commitment to providing a letter.
Perfect. So with that, and don't go anywhere, Ms. McDougall. I'll ask for a mover. Do I need to mover and a seconder? I'm sorry, to rise?
Yes, please. The motion
okay.
would be that council return to regular meeting.
Moved by Councillor Ramdas, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. All those in favor? Thank you. So I'll look to council to, do we have a councillor willing to propose a resolution including a number? Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. I would propose $10,000 for the 5-year term.
Seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any further discussion? Councillor Artie Kelly.
Just to clarify, that's 10,000 per year.
For a 5-year term.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. Any further discussion? Seeing none?
If I may, your worship,
Yeah.
would I be able to read out the resolution prior to voting, just to
Oh, yeah,
triple
please do.
confirm?
Please do. Yeah.
That council provide a letter of support for the Fernie Chamber of Commerce's application to the Rural Community Immigration Pilot and commit $10,000 per year for a 5-year term to support the implementation and coordination of the East Kootenay pilot program should the application to the pilot be successful.
With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Well, that was unanimous, so there's no one opposed. Not an ideal outcome for you, Ms. McDougall, but certainly a step in the right direction, and we're happy to support.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry for the short time frame, and yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
Not at all. And we'll have that letter to you forthwith. That is true. I know. That truer words were never spoken. With that, we'll move on to item 10.1, Waterworks bylaw and a report from our corporate officer, Ms. Daniel.
Thank you. I'm just going to test because last time I yelled. All right. So I am providing this report today on behalf of Director McConnell, who couldn't be here. And I'm here to speak about our Waterworks bylaw as well as our Water Conservation and Regulation bylaw. So both of these bylaws were brought for council consideration of 3 readings at the June 11th regular meeting of council, of which they were provided. After this meeting, the Corporate Administration Services team identified that there were some edits required for these bylaws. In both bylaws, the amendments were primarily either clerical or for clarification to support our enforcement of the bylaw. We clarified language. We just made sure our numbering was accurate in some sections. And the largest change would be in our Water Conservation Bylaw 2518, in which we removed Schedule B, which specifically outlined how our public notice out to the public would be written. We would take guidance in our office from the bylaw and would be able to include all of the legal necessities in that document. By removing it from the bylaw, what it allows us to do is be a little bit more nimble in being able to add different, I was like, phrasings is not the right word, add different information to that notice should we need to. In addition, we have also removed the permit for new trees for people to get from City Hall when they can come and get an exemption for watering for that season. Again, this will allow us to be a little bit more nimble if we need to make changes to the permit. Just speaking of discretionary grants, I believe it was the previous council, we used to have it part of our policy. So anytime we wanted to make a change, we would have to write a report, bring it to council, and delay the process to make a change that really would just be a quick thing for us to do in corporate administration. And I do not want to stand here and go through every single edit. We did provide red lines, but I would be happy to answer any of council's questions. Just before I open the floor to you, I will say that we can rescind third reading, reread with the amendments that have been provided, and then we would bring this back to the July 16th special council meeting for adoption, and we could now bring these enforcement rules out into the community.
Thank you, Ms. Daniel. Questions from council? Seeing, oh, Councillor McIsaac.
I'm going to apologize right now. I wouldn't even mention this except that we're doing minor edits. In 12.7, on the thing, it says a person must not obstruct the Director of Engineering, Public Works, or bylaw enforcement officer in the performance of their duties, or refuse to comply or delay in complying with any direction by such officer. This seems broad. Perhaps unduly so. I would suggest rewording that so that it's not refusing to comply or delay in directions in the performance of their duties. That's, I think the phrasing is just turned slightly. So that's, anybody on that?
It's a pretty common phrase to use in a bylaw. I appreciate that it kind of seems like we could go crazy in what we could ask them to do to comply, but it usually then provides us a little bit of scope so that if, say, we needed to specifically take an action for a unique property issue, we would be able to do so.
Yeah, perhaps I wasn't clear. I think the clause is completely appropriate and needed. Just the way that the wording is, it's excessively broad in the power that is being handed in that, and that they can suggest you do anything and you must comply. But it should really be things that they suggest in the performance of their duties. That's all. It's just a very slight. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't be that persnickety, except this is what we're doing right now. So
yes, no, persnickety rules right now.
Okay.
I am just bringing up that bylaw.
It's on page 53, 12.7.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I just want to make sure we have the wording correct before I ask you to rescind said readings and then provide another third reading. All right, sorry. So it was section 12.1, you said? 12.7.
So what I think that's intended to
Such
say.
officer.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I think that's intended to say is a person must not obstruct the Director of Engineering and Public Works or a bylaw enforcement officer or refuse to comply or delay in complying with any direction by such officer in the performance of their duties. I think that's how that's supposed to read.
Yes, I just wrote down here in enforcement of this bylaw, but I'd also be, would that be sufficient?
Sure.
For you? All right. So just for council and the broader public who are here with us. So section 12.7 would be changed to state a person must not obstruct the Director of Engineering and Public Works or a bylaw enforcement officer in the performance of their duties or refuse to comply or delay in complying with any direction by such officer in enforcement of this bylaw.
Perfect.
All right.
Oh, we know. Any other question, Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Worship. So I was just looking at this and it says bylaw effective date and grace period. And, you know, one of the reasons why we've been rushing this is to get it into effect as soon as possible. It says that this bylaw should come into force immediately upon adoption. However, financial penalties will take effect 2 months after the date. So does that mean that it comes in and then in mid-September we start doing the financial penalties? Is that?
I'm just going to defer to Director Heisler on
Okay.
this one.
Thank you for the clarification.
Through to council, there is a grace period on the water works bylaw, not the outdoor water conservation and the water conservation and regulation bylaw.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Seeing none, Ms. Daniel, did you want to read the recommendations up there or did you want to come back to your station?
I'll come back.
Okay.
Hat on. All right, the first one being that council rescind third reading of Waterworks bylaw number 2485/2023.
Moved by Councillor Ramirez, seconded by Counselor Nixon. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
That Waterworks bylaw number 2485, 2023 be given third reading as amended.
Moved by Counselor Nixon, seconded by Counselor Audie Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
That council rescind third reading of water conservation and regulation bylaw number 2518, 2024.
Moved by Counselor Ramadas, seconded by Counselor McIsaac. No discussion or any discussion? Sorry. Talk about too much power. Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you.
Lastly, that water conservation and regulation bylaw number 2518, 2024 be given third reading as amended.
Moved by Counselor Audie Kelly, seconded by Counselor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Daniel, and thank you, for whomever was in charge of tightening up that language, that bylaw. It's much tidier now, so thank you for that. This moves us on to item 10.2, a second report from Director Lennox. Or do we need a report or not?
Not necessarily.
No.
We could just provide third reading to the bylaws as we have just
Perfect.
completed
Thank you.
public hearing.
Yeah, it's written as a report here. I apologize. Yeah, with that, if you could read the recommendation, Ms. Daniel, I'd appreciate it.
That official community plan bylaw number 2231, amendment bylaw number 2521, 2024 be given third reading.
Moved by Counselor Audie Kelly, seconded by Counselor Nixon. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
That zoning bylaw number 1750, amendment bylaw number 2522, 2024 be given third reading.
Moved by Counselor Audie Kelly, seconded by Counselor Shoesmith. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And I apologize to Director Lennox for raising his blood pressure there. Item 11.1, report from Acting Manager Andrew Baird. Mr. Baird.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Here tonight to provide a little bit of background on the Oliviero Place, Spazio Road development that's now complete, and the city is required to return that development's maintenance securities. As described in the report, construction began on this development back in 2018, was completed in 2020. The final maintenance period for the development ended late in 2020. Sorry, the maintenance period ended late 2023, at which time the engineering department completed a typical review to confirm various components of the public infrastructure was in an acceptable condition to be taken over by the city. This was deemed to be unacceptable, and the process for returning the maintenance securities began, which involved returning 2 letters of credit to the applicant's bank. So we did that. Sometime after, the bank informed us, the city, that the letters received were not the originals, and that the originals were required to close out the project on their end. Alternatively, a letter of indemnity provided to close out their file. So with that, we did a lot of searching for the originals. We're unable to find them. So the letter of credit, which is drafted in today's agenda, is put forward, and we're requesting, I guess I can read it out, recommending that council direct the corporate officer to provide a letter of indemnity for the Spazio Road and Oliviero Place subdivision. And I can take any questions about
Thank you, Mr.
this.
Baird. Counselor Audie Kelly.
I was just curious how we would normally store documents like that? Like, would they not be in safekeeping or locked up somehow, or? I was just a little concerned when I read that we couldn't find them.
Yeah, absolutely. The documents that we do keep regarding letters of credit and securities are kept in a filing cabinet at the operations facility. We did have a letter that was returned to the bank, but it was apparently a photocopy of one. It wasn't the original. So whether or not the original was misplaced or perhaps never provided to the city. I'm unsure.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from council? Seeing none, I'll ask Ms. Daniel to read the recommendation.
That council direct the corporate officer to provide a letter of indemnity for the Bossio Road and Oliviero Place subdivision.
Moved by Councillor Nixon. Seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baird. That moves us on to item 11.2, which was the late item that I've added, which is the community center. And I've been giving the community center, as we all have, a great deal of thought. And I'd like to propose, and I personally think we owe it to the community. Let me back up. I think we made the right decision with the information we had, given the events that were proposed for that facility, to close it when we did. I think that was the right decision. I think we didn't want to put people in danger, and I think that was appropriate. I do appreciate that has caused some difficulty and heartache and a lot of work for folks, particularly in our facilities group, rescheduling and moving people around. But I would like to propose that we do delve into that facility a bit more, rather than develop strictly a decommissioning plan, that we do an options analysis as to what to do with that building. And in my mind, there are three options. There is a short-term interim solution, and I think it is referenced in one of the reports, in which we can protect portions of that building for use in the short term, up to 3 years, and allow people to use it as we look for alternatives. There's a medium or a second option would be complete demolition, where we started before. And I appreciate I'm getting sort of out of order. And the third option is a complete refurbishment of that building. I'd like to understand what the risks are with each of those options, particularly running it in its current condition, or with the mitigations in place, and sort of cost out, not just the risks. I apologize, I'm not articulating this very well. What are the risks of each of those options to the city? What are the risks to the public? What are the costs? So that we have a clearer picture. I feel like we made the right decision, but I also feel like we're struggling to defend that position out of a lack of analysis of those potential options. I think we'd be better positioned if we could do that. And I, look to council's support to advance something like that. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. So basically, run a cost benefit analysis for each option, as you mentioned. I think I would definitely support you there. I do agree with you. I think we made the right decision at the time, but now having a little more time and perhaps more information, we could look at some alternatives.
Thank you. Other comments from council? Councillor Ramadas.
I support that effort, Your Worship. Again, this is not perfect science. Like, you can't really dollar and cent to the last degree here. And I think a deep dive will give us a better answer. And if the answer comes back and says demolish it, then we can consider that too. So yeah, I fully support this.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. So I think we've used the word wishy-washy before, or I've used the word wishy-washy before, but I think this is, it's also being open-minded and being able to change your mind. Yeah, I think that, when you receive a report like that and you look at it and you understand who's in that facility, thinking back to the arena disaster, it really struck home with me personally, and I supported the closure of it immediately. And so, but I would be open to looking at future options as well. I think we need a better needs analysis. So.
Thank you. Other comments? Seeing none, oh, sorry, Councilor McIsaac, you do that to me every time.
Sorry, I apologize, Your Worship. I think I'd go to put my hand up just as you look to the other side. Yeah, I support this as well, Your Worship. I had a good conversation about this the other day at the Council Cafe. There's definitely concern in the community, but also I think there's some information that's needed, not just for us, but for the community as well, about what it actually would take to make the building safe to use, and what portions of it and what that looks like. And I think for myself, I would like to know what safe to use means, as far as things like the air quality, structural issues that are there, and so on. And also, I from reading in the report, some of the language that's in there, I think is misleading some of our community to believe that there's a relatively small amount of money needed to open that facility. And I don't believe that is the case if we actually do a bit of a deep dive on it to see what it would actually take. I would be happy to be proven wrong about that.
Agreed.
If it turns out that it's relatively affordable to make that space usable and safe, that would be wonderful news. And that would afford us a great deal more time to figure out a better longer term solution. So I completely support that. So I do think it's worth looking at what the actual cost would be to make that a usable space, or determine that it's not possible. That also would be valuable. And a more expensive answer, I think, would be good for us, but also good for the community as well.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Yeah, as somebody that's changed my vote a lot in the past, I proclaim myself a member of the Waffle Party. Glad you guys could join me. But no, I have no idea what the best thing to do with that building is, or what the best option is. None whatsoever. I think that the way forward is to be considered and to give it a fulsome analysis and then proceed. And, whatever we do is going to come out of that. So I'll support.
Now, I also recognize that this is likely an unbudgeted exercise because we have a very busy staff, but I think it's worthwhile. Councilor Ravenous? Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to explore it. I think I like Councilor McIsaac's framing in terms of we need more information, but also our community needs more information. And I think that's worth it to have those answers for everybody. Councilor Ravenous.
Using your phrase of being a mercenary here, Your Worship, is it possible to do it at zero cost with staff time? I mean, there's no zero cost, but just with staff time and not with consultants. Again, it's a question to CAO there, but that would be super ideal for me.
Yeah, no, I very much appreciate that. I have my doubts because there are other and competing priorities, but I'd look to Mr. Boranowski to speak to that.
No, in that we will need to bring in external experts to look at health risks and mold and air quality and systems that we have really good expertise in terms of occupational health and safety. But if you're wanting a risk analysis of what it takes to address the structural and mold and to what level you're comfortable exposing people to that air quality, at what level of remediation, that's not something my employee is employed to do. They're employed to look after the health and safety of other employees. And then further, our teams are fully committed to at or beyond their capacity in terms of facility assessments elsewhere. So if we hit a pause on doing facility assessments and the work planned underway for those, then staff could look at pivoting their work plans and taking something like that on, but I absolutely can't recommend it. This is the first of a number of facility assessments. We have to understand the real details of the quality of all of our leased facilities. And if that work goes on hold to do a deeper dive of this, I think we're putting ourselves further behind than we already are in advancing our facility scope of our asset management program. So we could significantly reduce the cost, but not without significant reductions to really critical work that we're trying to catch up on.
Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. I think it's safe to say that failing to commit adequate time and resources to the analysis of what the situations are in all of our facilities has led us to this place.
Agreed.
So I think bringing in outside expertise and doing that job and allowing our staff to continue the work that they've already been assigned to is the best course of action.
Yeah, and as Mr. Boranowski was speaking, I wouldn't want to find, 3 years down the road, we have one or more facility that we're suddenly in the same position with. So those facility assessments should proceed. Councillor Shoesmith and then Councillor Audie Kelly.
Are there any partnership opportunities that anybody's thought of? Is there any way we can defray some of that cost? I'm sure there's some philanthropic organization out there somewhere to help needing towns with ailing buildings.
The power of wishful thinking. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think this question's probably for CFO. Would funds for this, since we already have a budget that we're now messing with completely, do funds for this type of thing have to come out from current operational budgets and like mess something else up? Do they come from building reserves? Like, where will we find the money?
There is a facilities reserve. I know we've drawn it down somewhat.
Thanks, Councillor Audie Kelly. If council wants to commit funds to this, it would come from either the Financial Stability Operating Reserve or the facilities reserve via a budget amendment.
And do we know sort of the current status of those reserves?
Yeah, the Stability Operating Reserve is just under 400,000, and then the Facility Renovation Reserve is 1.2 million. That's according to the financial plan as adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Amanis.
If I remember it right, Your Worship, we have already budgeted $104,000 for operating expense on the community center, have we not? So we're not going to incur that expense anyway.
It's a fair comment, yeah. It offsets some of that, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Amadas. I mean, keep in mind that those are staff time and nobody's been laid off as a result of this closure. And then there's also insurance on the building, which you still have to pay. There's utilities, which we do save a bit on, but we won't recognize that until we get our utility bills. And so it's not as much as you think, but yeah, there's a little bit of savings there.
Thank you. So the next step is I don't know if I can propose a resolution.
Yes, you absolutely may.
That council directs staff to perform an options analysis that looks at 3 potential outcomes for the community center, ranging from full rehabilitation, demolition, and an interim operating plan. Yeah, I have. I know. So it's probably best if it's the interim operating plan, the full rehabilitation, and demolition in that order.
Sorry, you wanted an interim operating plan first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that it include a risk analysis that considers both employees and the public in each of those options. Mr. Boranowski.
Your Worship, if I may, my comments around staff and abilities are not to try and diminish my estimation of their abilities, just that the work that we have prioritized for our facilities department is quite critical. And both Mr. Logan and Mr. Heisler have recently completed their professional asset management certification with a goal of advancing those. And so I'm just unable to, in terms of administrative recommendations, recommend to council that we disrupt that workflow for an additional or a different project. But it's not to say that we don't have significant skill in-house.
Yeah,
I wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, no, thank you. I don't think anybody interpreted it that way. I think there's a recognition that those facility assessments have to continue, as Councillor McIsaac so aptly pointed out. We don't want to That's what got us here. So if you don't mind.
Yes, that council directs staff to perform an options analysis that looks at 3 potential outcomes for the community center, ranging from an interim operating plan, full rehabilitation, and demolition, and that the analysis include a risk analysis that considers both employees and the public in each of those options.
So seconded by Councilor Ramadas. Any further discussion? Councilor McIsaac.
This might be a question for staff, Your Worship, but with regards to in the wording of that recommendation and following the discussion that's happened at the table, it's understood that we're not actually asking staff to do those things,
No, that's
but to
correct.
find the resources to do those things.
Find the
Yes, okay.
resources to do those things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 14.1 or 14, correspondence. Did anything jump out at staff or any comments that from any of those? I did have a question, and maybe this is for a corporate officer, that forgive me, MIABC, we can have 2 alternates. We only have 1. Should we have a second? Should we identify a second? Okay.
In past practice, we've usually only appointed 1 second to yourself, the mayor, who usually holds that role. I wasn't able to find any information on why we only select 1. If this is something of interest to council, I would be happy to bring back a report to a meeting more quickly if we want to have a second for this upcoming UBCM, or in our upcoming annual appointments in December, we could add that second edition.
And it happens at UBCM, and as such, I wasn't able to, haven't yet been able to attend, but Councillor Nix has attended on our behalf. Yeah, I don't know if it seems to be working. If it ain't broke, as they say, don't fix it. So I'll just leave it at that.
I am quite dependable.
You have been. Thank you. Any other comments from correspondence? Seeing none, I will, sorry.
I missed section.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Not at all. And as such, I haven't prepared. I hope others have. Council reports. Councilor McIsaac. No, it was your eyes.
It was fair. Not very much to report, Your Worship. I was actually away for a little bit and enjoyed that. I was going to mention about the council cafe and the discussion about the community center, but I'm glad that you brought up the item for the agenda and we've had that discussion, so I won't recover that ground. Just be glad to be back in Fernie, and thoroughly enjoyed the Canada Day festivities.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Amanas.
Thanks, Your Worship. Canada Day was really good. Yeah, some of us volunteered. It was wonderfully done. It was better than last year. Kudos to the staff. And also, Your Worship, just lots of conversation in the community on different topics, community center, fire hall, you name it. So all my time outside of council has been just that. So yeah, nothing specific to report, but it's just the general concepts and themes that we have been talking about at this table. It's just out there in the public space as well.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Definitely been out and about pounding the pavement and talking to people, just by dint of being around town working these days. I brought my daughter to her birthday celebration at Canada Together. It was very nice. We handed out cupcakes, and yeah, it was good to enjoy it. I missed last year's because I was in the hospital with yeah, it was a good thing. I enjoyed it. It was nice to see everybody out. Not much else to report.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. So I attended the grad ceremonies in the arena, listened to a nice speech from our mayor. It was a happy and sad ceremony for me, as I know 95% of the kids that are there that are graduating, and realizing that they won't be part of the fabric of Fernie Secondary next year kind of makes me sad. Instead, we'll get a bunch of jerk grade sevens. I mean, no, I didn't say that out loud. Just joking. They're all nice kids. There's certainly some great kids who are just off, on their next journey. And it was really nice to see, with all their families and everything else. I also attended the Canada Together ceremony, another excellent job by Mayor Milligan at the top of the steps of the City Hall. Sound system was great. Very gracious host to our, and great building continues building a strong relationship with the Yaka Akakliit. Nisuka and Gravel emphasized we need to acknowledge the history of Canada and how we all can come together and be grateful for what we have in this shared land. And after the speeches, we followed the drumming circle through the streets into the aquatic grounds, and kudos to the staff for the excellent, ceremony there as well. And I even danced. It was crazy. I had to run off and do a run off and pack to go to Invermere for my in-laws' 60th anniversary. So happy birthday or happy anniversary to John and Linda. So
thank you. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. I can vouch for Councillor Nixon. He did dance. I saw him. I was handing out cupcakes. So was really happy to take part in handing out the cupcakes at Canada Day. Everybody really liked the little flags. They enjoyed them. Some people tried to eat them. We had to tell them, no, they're not edible. They're plastic, but hey, if that's in part of your diet. But it was really great and very well done. I've had a lot of people say that they enjoyed it. And actually, I got to go to the first Wednesday, or was it the first? The Wednesday social the other night. And I must say that the new mural is spectacular. And I have not heard one single person say anything negative about it, like, woohoo, yay. But it was really great. Enjoyed the festivities and the deck at the Legion. And I also on the weekend attended the Arthur Simbrowski Memorial Tennis Tournament, and just want to give a shout out to folks to really consider being organ donors. It's something that we can do if for others. So a pump out for that one. And yeah, that's about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Not a lot to add. Canada Together. Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Appreciate the comments. Yeah, that's an incredibly powerful experience walking behind that drum to the Aquatic Center. I took one of the singers aside and really commended him. I was just giving me goosebumps the whole way. It was quite something. And incredibly gracious gentleman too. Chief Cliff Singers from Elmo, Montana. I want to, as always, thank our community for coming out to every opportunity, and the Council Cafe being one of them. We've had an excellent turnout to almost every one of them, and I'm very grateful to our community for that. And yeah, and I was able to speak at both schools for the graduations, and that's always a very emotional time, and really enjoy it. And not least of all because it lets me reminisce about my graduation, particularly for the in the Fernie Arena and the pastel tuxedos we all wore. Makes me so nostalgic. But yeah, thank you. That'll be it for me. And now we'll move on to item 16.1, and I'll ask Ms. Daniel to read our recommendation to close.
That the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91C and 91E of the Community Charter, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to labor relations and other employee relations, as well as the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of lands or improvement, if the council considers the disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality.
Can I have a mover? Councillor McIsaac, seconded by Councillor Ramadas. Any discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. We will move to close, and I'll thank everybody for joining us this evening.
I come from a larger corporation, Delta. I heard about it about 15 times or so. Just want to say it was impressive. Say the question, sex. Wish we had it. Delta lady, cafe out of the house. Anyway, I just wanted to comment.
Oh, very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
And I will say that is my father, so he is giving us extra compliments tonight. I would like to say he survived Mayor Lois Jackson, so.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Dad. See you later.